Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our chat room, via our Facebook page, and of course, on Twitter. Keep it funky. Oh, yeah, baby. Keep it funky. How you doing, everyone? Welcome to another episode 183 of Stu and the Nunn. And as you can see, I don't have the Nunn with me. I got someone much prettier, so I had to play my sexy intro, which made her laugh. So I don't know if that's a good or bad
It did. I was just kind of like, you have it funkified.
I got my funk. Yeah, I have to record. I haven't, maybe over the holidays, like it's supposed to be slower, like that's going to happen. But I need to do some new intros. I got to do some new bumpers. I got to do some outros. We've changed some of our sponsors and all that stuff. But for now, yeah, I love the funky. I love the funky. Whew. Well, dropped the.
Your mom's gonna
I
yell
dropped
at you.
the N, which made a bomb, but not that bomb. So, anyways, hey, well, welcome, Wendy. How you doing?
Good. Just keeping busy.
Yeah. Well, we haven't had you on in a while. You were guest host with me. I don't know, a few months ago, I guess, several months ago.
No,
Wasn't
it has
5 or
been
6?
like a year, dude.
No, it hasn't been a year. I'm gonna go back and look at our Viber chat of when you like typed "I gotta go pee" and see what the date is on it. Please don't
I've
type
been
anything
busted
tonight,
so
Wendy.
many times by chat.
Do not type anything. Unless you're gonna text me a message. Don't type it in any
Yeah,
kind
I
of
got
app.
my cell phone here so I
Okay.
can text you just in case.
Look at that high-speed headset too, boy. You got it out. You got it going on. You look like
I do a lot of webinars at work.
Look at you. All right, there we go. Well, I see our
I
familiar.
did not steal my work gear. I borrowed it for tonight.
There we go. I'm glad I got a hold of you early enough, and I thank you for coming on and joining me on this December 5th. And I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank our sponsors, Veteran Outdoors, and of course, Enlisted 9 Fight Company. Of course, we're always wearing the Enlisted 9 gear. Got my VO hat on, red matching red, and I want to thank both those as big sponsors of the show. I also want to thank some people coming into the chat early. Hey, Sarah Lee. I hope your ears weren't ringing because we were just talking about you seconds before we went live. Just so you know, it had to do with venison jerky. That's all I'm going to say. You can figure out what it was about. But me and Wendy were just talking about that, and I just was dropping your name. I try to drop the famous people I know. I try to drop their names whenever I can. Try, make me feel good, like maybe I know a few people. And welcome Sarah and John and Michael Ewing and all those that have jumped into the chat already, and a number of other people I see on the chat. I want to thank you guys for coming in and being part of this, along with Wendy giving me up some of her Thursday night to help me host this show, so it's not just me talking to myself, which would be kind of boring and sad to do that. But anyways, yeah. Well, welcome back, Wendy. Good to have you back on. I know you.
Yeah,
You've been involved with this as long as I have across multiple shows. I mean, let's just keep it real, what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, we have done a lot of different formats. I mean, I've gone all the way back to when CJ started it, so I can't even remember when that was.
It was UServe
But
days, early UServe days. Well before Marcus.
no, that was before you served, because CJ just had a show all by himself, and I remember sitting in my bedroom with my laptop listening to him, and I was like, I'm gonna call. He was talking about like, and he would just talk. CJ just talk nonstop. And then he would say, oh, somebody should call me and talk to me. And he and I weren't like super close friends. And so, I had this thing about my voice and talking on the radio and, even calling in, trying to win a prize. Like, I'm like, I cannot publicly speak. So, I called in a couple times and I'm all shaky and like trying to make my point, and now how many years later I'm like, throw something at me, I got you.
Yeah, well, you've always been back in the day in the UServe days, and when you were kind of our unpaid producer. Now we have Rob, who serves as a great unpaid producer, but back in those days you were really the matriarch of the group. You kept me and CJ and Mark.
Matriarch.
Yeah, you were kind of the big mama of the group. You kept us, me and especially Marcus, but me, Marcus, and CJ in line Made sure we had guests. When we didn't have guests, you always you were a great devil's advocate. You always threw us for a loop, and even though you maybe didn't believe in a certain path or whatever, you would throw that at us to try to make us respond and make us better host and talk about a topic besides all agreeing with each other. I mean,
Yeah.
and would get very very frustrated with us and cuss us out a lot and yell at us. And yes, you were
Yeah,
the
you
big
guys
mama.
were
You
a
weren't always.
lot to run herd on.
Yeah, yeah, and loved you every bit and every minute of it, and always have, and still do. And I'm glad you can come on and do the show with me because it reminds me of our old times for sure.
Yeah.
Except hopefully we're
I'm sure you'll have some good topics and I will be polite. I will not say any naughty words.
you can. Mama Stewart's in the chat. You know she is. I see her there. You can. Mama knows how you talk. She's been on your Facebook.
I know, you're sweet, mother. I swear when I go down south to visit my family, I'm gonna stop by. I'm gonna pop in on your parents one of these times. I just haven't gotten around to. I haven't been down in like a year and a half. So
Yeah. The well, if you do, they would love it absolutely, and I think you've been going quite a bit because I'm starting to pick up less of your native accent and a little bit more Alabama accent. I'm just saying, I'm picking up a little twang on you.
I'm
Uh,
tired. That's it. It rolls out when I'm really, really
yeah,
tired. My kids know when I'm tired.
yeah,
It's been a long couple since I went to Israel. I've just been playing catch up.
yeah,
So
yeah. The well, mom's give you a big thumbs up. She wants you to come visit. No, it'll do that. As you know, I just came back from a little overseas trip myself for a couple weeks. It takes a little bit to get back, and even though if you go for work, the work doesn't back here doesn't stop, right? It just keeps piling on.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. And then I went for training, and so everything that I learned, I'm trying to implement, and I've got a million projects on I wrote a list down, and there must have been like 15 things on the list, and I'm just grinding through it.
yeah.
That's all I can do. But
And
you
ironically,
know,
you were there when I was in India. I think we were
I know both of us were traveling at the same time. We were in the same part of the
we were
globe.
on the other side of the globe.
Yeah.
You doing cool pictures of sitting out on the back deck and whatever, smoking a cigarette or whatever. And I was like pictures of dodging cows and in garbage strewn streets. I think is what I was doing. But yeah, we were. It was, and I think I texted you or something like, "Isn't this crazy? Like the two of us, like scattered all over the globe and
Yeah, I
all over the
know.
nice."
Tel Aviv was crazy beautiful. I was like, they kept telling me like it's supposed to be like the New York because it's a kind of a designed city, and it's supposed to be kind of I guess, kind of a shadow of New York City,
Right.
but it's way cleaner, way cooler. The people are all beautiful. There's no weird, sketchy homeless guy, hitting you up for money or food. Uh, they have the bombs,
Yeah, they got
but
those. You got downside. You can't have all good. No, I
you
mean
can't have it
it's
all good.
and Israel's one of my on my bucket list. I mean Australia, I've gotten to go there now. I've had that. Singapore, I was at right before India, which was never been on my bucket list. I went there and realized I love that place probably more than Australia. And there's a few more places I want to go, but Israel's definitely a place for the history and everything else. I hope to get to one day. With all my
I
travels I've done,
cried
that's one
like a
of
baby
yeah
when I saw Jerusalem and Bethlehem, and yeah, it is an amazing country. You have to be kind of aware, obviously a lot of situational awareness.
yeah.
Um, but the people are amazing. The country's amazing. It's so narrow and long, no matter where you travel, you kind of have a general idea of which direction you're going because you see the water. Is it on your left or is it on your right?
You really don't
So
want it
you
behind you for a
go
long
for
time because
yourself.
if it's
Huh?
if it's behind you for a long time, that means you're really going the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah, we did a little roll through the West Bank, which was not on the itinerary, but but
I want to
it
talk
was
about that.
safe,
I
You
kind of like
see.
the time I was in Germany and I actually ended up in Austria. It wasn't planned. It was like,
Oh, Bruce and I, my ex-husband and I, we were down south in southern Germany, and we were trying to get to one of the castles, and we rolled over into Switzerland, and we were like, "Oh, the mountains are beautiful." Because in the southern part of Germany, there's mountains too.
oh
So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
just kind of like driving along, and then you hit another checkpoint. You hear hit another security checkpoint, and you're like, "What is this?" And they're like, "You're leaving Switzerland. You're going to Germany." And we're like, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that."
That was pre EU days when they had all those stuff.
Yeah, the Schengen zone, before the Schengen zone, where they
Yeah,
don't even have those
yeah.
little
things
booths
anymore.
or whatever.
Yeah. Well, hey, well, let's get it. We they're catching up a little bit. Everyone's tuning in, and we have a lot of people on, and I want a number of topics to get into tonight. There's something I want to hit up front. It is this is a week of anniversaries, and I just want to touch on that for a second. And what I mean by that is a couple. So the other night, I don't know if anyone saw it. I threw up a quick little video on the Stew and the Nunn page. I was down in D.C. for a couple days, and I was able to have dinner with a good dear friend of mine, Jason Amarine, who we just had on the show a couple weeks ago, and I think about 3 4 weeks ago, and actually the one right before Thanksgiving, and then we've had a number of other times. And Jason was the team commander of ODA 574 that went in and brought Karzai into southern Afghanistan and introduced him into southern Afghanistan. Eventually caused the Taliban in the south and in Helmand province and all that to Kandahar to collapse, and how we initially pretty much won Afghanistan after just a few weeks. We were having dinner the other night, which turned into a really long margarita filled rant back and forth, which was really good because sometimes you need that. And it was just a good time. And he kind of reminded me. He goes, "Yeah, December 3rd." And I knew one date was coming up. And he goes, "December 3rd. This was the first date I ever killed anybody." And I was like, "What?" So we were talking
Oh,
about it and thinking back to the book that he's featured in, Eric Blem's book. I was like, he was like, "Yeah, this was the day that I went forward into the village. My rest of my team stayed back, and I ended up just dropping bombs and dropping. And it was the first time I've ever actually killed anyone. That was today." And I'm like, "Wow, what a unique anniversary." And we kind of talked about that a little bit. And then I was like, "That means," he goes, "Yeah," and I'm like, "In a couple of days." So today, December 5th, is actually the 18th anniversary of of pretty much two things. One, when Afghanistan fell, and when the Taliban gave up, but more sadly, when his team was hit with the fratricide, and his whole team pretty much taken out, either killed or wounded, along with a large number, unknown number of Afghan, Karzai's Afghan warlord fighters or Afghan fighters. So that was actually today. December 5th was the day that, and we joked about this a couple weeks ago, Wendy, that had the Taliban known, I'm sure in hindsight they were probably just kicking themselves, had they known that by the time they gave up and surrendered and sent the surrender message across, that the team had already been hit and wiped out. There literally was almost no team left. There were Jason and a few were walking wounded. A couple guys were killed. Everyone was. I mean, they had a I think it was 2,000 pound bomb JDAM dropped on them via accident that should never have been dropped. That was called in by somebody that was ill equipped, ill trained, and there was no target to drop on. And you can read all about that in the book, Eric Blem's book. Only why is it escaping me right now? But today's that day, December 5th. So the other night we talked. I made the video. I said, I casually snuck in there about it being anniversaries because he said, "Yeah, let's not chat about that right on the video when we do it." I'm like, okay, we talked about it for enough over a couple hours, but today is that day. I sent him a text a little bit ago telling him I was thinking of him. It's a hard day when you're a leader. It's a hard day when you're a soldier and you lose somebody. A lot of us wear the bracelets.
yeah.
It's more so when you're a small unit leader, like a Special Forces A-Team commander, and you lose a couple of your guys, including your team sergeant, who is your right-hand man, and especially to something in the method that this happened. And so, yeah, I just reached out to him and then just wished him and just told him I was thinking of him. And even though we were together a couple nights ago, but I bring that up because regardless if you lost someone in an A team on your team, if you lost a buddy that maybe you used to serve with and they were not even serving with them anymore, maybe they're in a different unit or whatever the situation is. I guess the point is, if we're going to make this into a PSA, is just keep those anniversaries handy. Even if it's a friend that didn't lose someone, maybe you lost someone to cancer, a family member, or to an accident or something else. It means a lot when someone just makes a small reach out and says, "Hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, you're in my thoughts and prayers today." Lord knows we have enough electronic systems now, enough calendars and all this stuff. You don't have to write it. You can have it in your phone. You can do it, even if it takes that, because we get so busy in life. But
Yeah.
they'll appreciate it, right? Just to reach out, and I think it's just important to think about those anniversaries. We have them. We all have them through our whole life, right? Of
Yeah, the military has a different type of anniversaries, a live day and
Yeah,
um, some guys, the first time I walked day. Uh, and it's very different than, my birthday, my wedding anniversary, the first time he kissed me, the day he proposed. Um, I think the military has a very unique set of anniversaries that are very significant. And to those who know what they are, it really means a lot. Yeah, when you recognize that that day impacted their lives in such a way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 9/11, of course, impacted all of us, right? And we all have. And how many times have you sat around just in some kind of weird conversation or some kind of setting that you probably weren't even planning for, that somehow that topic comes up? And it probably doesn't come up as often now as it probably has over the last number of years. Everyone, I mean, still today, when it happens to me, where somehow that comes up and we all start talking about where we were, what we went through, what we experienced, what city we were in, 18 years later, it still
Yeah,
happens where someone, because that date is so pronounced and burned into our psyche and our history. But as big as that was for the country, like you said, those anniversaries are to us, some of us individually, to our units, to our families. Those dates have just as much significance, right?
yeah,
And thanks to Dawood, a good old buddy and team member in Afghanistan who threw it up there. The only thing worth dying for. That's Eric's book. I just couldn't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, that's definitely. If you haven't read it or haven't checked it out, it is a heck of a read to see what that team went through, coming in and bringing Karzai in, which eventually caused the whole Taliban fall, and of Karzai being the first leader for the first couple of elections. But yeah, so the other night spent a good time with Jason, and it was good to catch up with him. The guy's doing a lot of phenomenal work, a technical advisor on a lot of movies and shows, and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And you can Google his name and see a lot of things that he went through. But also another date's coming up, Wendy, and that's in 2 days. And December 7th, even though none of us were alive during that time.
yeah. The
Uh,
day that lives in infamy.
yeah, and it is poignant for me personally this year, because I mean our good friend Lauren Bruner just passed away a couple months ago, about almost 2 months ago, and we've had him on the show. Toby and I've talked about it a ton of times. We know his book's right behind me. We promoted his book so much you'd think we were his publishers, but and Lauren is definitely being interned in the USS Arizona. I'm not sure if it's happened yet, but I haven't had a chance to catch up with his people. But I mean, here's this anniversary's coming up yet again. Last year was the last year that the Pearl Harbor survivors got together, because it was the 75th anniversary. I think, was that last year. I know it was the 75th last year, but last year was the last year they've all gotten together, because they're just so old now. They know they'll never be able to get together again, and
Yeah,
they are slowly passed away, and sadly Lauren is gone now, and who lived a rich, full life, but left it leaving a legacy, trying to honor his fellow service members, by doing the guided recordings for the USS Arizona in his voice. And if you haven't read his book, definitely please go get that one. It's second to the last to leave, if you can hear me. So I moved from my mic. And again, I can't promote this one enough. It is. I mean, I don't even know if they have any left that he has signed, but we were pushing it a long time because he was signing them, and it is something you can read over and over and over again and still not get enough of it, because it's a lot to take in. But yeah, in on Saturday is going to be that anniversary. It's a week of anniversaries.
yeah. You know, well, I mean, the holiday season and then all of these other personal or national things from September until January is always just kind of, September 11th and uh, Veterans Day, and it's just there's a lot to celebrate, but then there's just kind of those mournful things too
Right.
that and the current generation, they're like what well, at least two or three generations down from those that group of gentlemen who went over there, and so I don't know that they really appreciate what it means. I know when I was growing up, it was in the 70s, and wasn't that far removed. Now we're in 2019, and it's just people don't really appreciate, I think, the sacrifice as much. I think people appreciate more the current group of guys like you and others who have fought, but the greatest generation, I don't think that they really appreciate how horrific and what a huge sacrifice it was.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, if they're not teaching it, if you're not watching those old movies, you don't have someone personally sitting down on, with you and relaying those experiences. That's why this book is so important, because you feel like you're sitting at the dining room table with Lauren as he talks. I mean, that's the way it's written. If you don't have it, I mean, you're disconnected. And if you think about World War I vets, none of us have a connection with them. We know it was terrible. None of us can even imagine, even though we have some of the history in the movies that talk
Yeah.
about the gassing and living in those trenches, and just being, dying of all these, have all these injuries, and trench foot. It's where immersion foot became just such a thing, and got the name trench foot, and just the horrific conditions. But none of us can relate to that. We can't even. It's hard to kind of, for lack of a better term, out of sight, out of mind, right? It's and
Well, yeah, and I think we've got a generation of and the current I mean, I'm talking about the current generation. They have always known instant access of information. They have always selectively filtered what they want to see and hear and do with their time. Um, and a lot gets lost. I will say, I was published in the letter to the editor when Grace was in high school. My daughter was in high school, so she's 23 now. So, you know, like maybe 7 years ago. And it was December 7th. It was a school day. And she came home and said that they had done a diversity day on December 7th at her school. And I said, well, and she was in an AP history class, and I said, well, did your history teacher mention what today is and the historic significance of it is? And she's like, no, no, he didn't say anything. And I said, well, today's D-Day, December, not D-Day, December 7th, the attack on Pearl Harbor. And that's what drew us into World War II. And I said, he didn't say anything at all, like even mention, hey,
right,
we're doing this thing, but we also have this historical significance as a history teacher. And she said, no, he never mentioned it at all today. And I was a little irritated.
yeah,
And so I wrote a little letter to the editor about how, a single day out of the school year, could you pick another day,
right,
and at least allow the history teacher enough, I don't know, mental breathing room to remember, what December 7th is. So
right.
and that was literally a history teacher out of high school. So if a history teacher out of high school doesn't bother to bring it up or teach it, where are we going to get it from?
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, I mean it's I mean we look back at the earlier wars prior to World War I, right? Our wars from the foundation of our country, or even the Civil War or whatever. If it wasn't for the movies, those would be long forgotten, right? If it wasn't for the direction and the explosion and the cannons and that, the movies like the Blue and Gold and Patriot Day and all that kind of, the Patriot and all that kind of stuff, that'd be off our radar. So I mean, there hasn't been a lot of movies about World War One, but I can tell you what there has been. If you haven't seen it, is there's this great video running around on Facebook and others, this little video clip. I just watched it the other day, and it's a man. It grabs you in the throat. It's the one of the Christmas Day in World War One in the trenches. Have you seen that one yet?
I have not seen the video, but I do know the story
Yeah.
behind it,
Someone's put
where
together,
they
yeah, someone's put together a video, and it's the soldiers coming out of both sides, and playing sports together, and kicking a soccer ball and trading cigarettes, and all on Christmas Day, where they took that truce, and then then the bombs start back up, and they all kind of go back to fight each other again, and it's pretty, it'll grab you. I watched it just the other day. I don't know who produced it or how long that's been out, but it's the first time I'd seen it. So, but there's
yeah.
not a lot of War One. I mean, there's just, there's just not a lot of storytelling from that, and there's not there weren't combat cameramen or embedded reporters, or there really wasn't any of that back then. So we had
Yeah, but they had that movie about the war horse, right?
yeah, they've had some.
I just watched that.
Yeah, they have
I know it's
some.
like 10 years old,
Right.
but and even just the War Horse movie. I can't remember what it was called. Maybe it was War Horse. But the fact that they had to use horses and they had to co-opt them and they had to pull the cannons and they had to slog through the mud, and
Right.
I think kids today, they literally cannot fathom, when their mom's driving an SUV, that there was a time where going from village to village entailed a horse, and fighting entailed just marching and marching and marching to get from place A to place B. When, you guys, the current fighters, you guys are loading up the big planes, you're, dropping Humvees with parachutes, in the
Right.
middle of a field, and they can't fathom
Right.
any other way to do something.
Well, we've talked about it a number of times on this show and a number of others prior to us having this show. Is about the fact that back in the days of pretty much I call it we have this Vietnam mindset since Vietnam of the one and go, right, 1 year deployed, come home, 1 year deployed, come home. But back in World War II and earlier, there was no right, guys went over and they went to the European theater and they just went from Germany to Italy to wherever, and some went to the South Pacific when that ended up. So I mean, there was no concept of I'm going for a short time period. It's like I'm going to war. I'll come back when it's all over with. And they just unless they got completely decimated or they got wounded so bad or something like that, or there were special circumstances, it was rare that the military, Department of Defense, pulled units out. You went over there and stayed,
Yeah.
and you just kept getting refreshed and replenished with new guys, right?
Yeah.
But since then we've had this mindset. Now it's weird though, we didn't have it. I've talked about this. We didn't have it in Desert Storm. When I was in Desert Storm, there was no.
Yeah, but the
But
difference is that previously in that war, they were conscripted to fight, and everybody fought until the war was over.
right, a lot yeah, for the most part were conscripted and brought in, but
And
uh,
even Vietnam,
they were drafted, but
they
they still did one and went, right, one and went, and it was that mindset of you get 1 year, do your 1 year, and you've checked the block, right.
I
The
don't think all of them did just like 1 year and out.
No, well, Vietnam was a 1 year tour, and many, like my dad and others, went and did 2 or 3 years. It was a 1 year tour, and you did your
Yeah.
1 year and went back, and whether you enlisted or were
Were
drafted or
you
whatever.
were you just drafted for 1 year?
No, you're
Is that
drafted.
the
You
way it
they
worked?
rushed you through basic training. I think it was about a year and a half to 2 years. There was guys that went to Vietnam that barely didn't do over 2 years. They got drafted. They did a shake and bake basic training, like an AIT essentially, taught them some skills and shipped them right in the country.
Yeah,
If the,
but there were other guys that were drafted at the time that did not go to Vietnam.
Right. There's some that didn't under, but most that were drafted went. Very few that were drafted. There were some specialist ones, specialty ones I know that went to Germany to do a specialty skill.
Yeah,
Uh,
my dad went to Korea.
right. There were some that went over and did specialty skills, but the German, but the Vietnam tour was a 1 year tour. And I don't know just off the top of my head how long they had to be back before they went back over. I know some volunteered to go back over, but it was but I mean I don't think there were any that were I don't know, I could be wrong, and someone will surely point it out. I don't think there were many that were forced to go back over unless they wanted to. But they just keep throwing new bodies and draftees at it all the time. But it was but you lose continuity that way. You lose
Yeah.
experience, and we saw the same thing
But
in Afghanistan. We've seen in Iraq, where people get over
but
there and you.
the thing is that I guess I would have to look into it, because there had to have been a standing army. I mean, we not a standing army, but we have volunteers.
Right.
After World War II, it wasn't like after World War II, every soldier just disappeared back
No,
home.
yeah, they kept
So
theirs.
there were military men that
Yeah,
were
they kept us.
serving
Yeah, they kept us
that were
standing
not
army. Yeah,
draftees. They
right.
were,
Which we
in the
had, which
service.
we had in
So
Vietnam
then,
too. There were guys that enlisted, didn't get drafted, that enlisted either before, during, or after Vietnam. Right. So
but their tour, even if they enlisted for like 3 years, their tour over there was only for a year, and then they
yes,
would come back.
yep, yeah. So and like I say, in Desert Storm, that was never even a matter. I was there 9 months, right? There we went. We were going till we like got to Baghdad or whatever, kick Saddam out. I mean, that never was brought up. Nor was it, I ever heard anyone say, "Hey, we're only here for a year." We literally went over there. Like, I guess we're here. We'll get. Panama was quick. Grenada was quick. And but Desert Storm, even at up to even January when Air War started, no one ever said, "Hey, we only got a few more months till we're out of here." It was just like, we're going to be here till we're done. I don't know what would happen had the ground war lasted longer, and maybe we were there past the August timeframe when I got there. But I know it was never mentioned. But we also deployed 500,000 troops over there, so we didn't have a lot back here to tap into. There weren't units to rotate out with. We deployed a large amount of our military into theater, so there wasn't. I'm not sure that was even a concept. But everything since then has been a 1 year in and out, right? We've seen it. You and I know a lot of people, not have gone through yourself, that have done multiple tours, right? And has done a lot of damage to families and just a lot of stuff, right? That's had a big impact on.
Yeah, I think, with Vietnam, I think when you think about how long and protracted it was, and then Afghanistan and Iraq, it just seems like we've been there a lifetime. And for our children's generation, it actually is a
Think
lifetime.
about it, 18
Um,
years. They're 18 years. I mean,
yeah,
my son
yeah,
just celebrated his 18th birthday. Just had that, and he was
he was an infant.
I
Yeah,
mean, he was born before Afghanistan fell with Jason's team, right? And
yeah,
so literally there are kids signing up today. There are kids graduating high school today, and kids signing up today that all they've known is we've been in war, right? From the moment, for you figure they were born in
yeah,
'01, '02. By the time they got old enough to realize what's going on, give it 3 or 4 or 5 more years. That's really all they've known. They've never known a
yeah,
country without it. That's a phenomenal thing to think about. But
yeah. And the thing is that you can't. I mean, we could never perpetuate a war where we just sent the volunteers. Okay, this unit's going to stay there until the war is won. I think I wonder if what happened in Vietnam and the political finagling that went on just kind of made us realize that we cannot just constantly grind a war like that.
right, right, yeah,
You know what I mean? And so then, then of course all those guys who fought in Vietnam who were young guys were all senior officers when this round came through,
the ones
like
that were
near the
right.
end of their, you know, uh service, getting nearing retirement or whatever. Um, and I'm sure they had a long memory about, like, if we get bogged down in an insurgency like we did with Vietnam, this thing's just going to last forever, and we're going to have to come up with a game plan to rotate these people in and out, in and out.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll win it. I'm sure that they were like, hopefully we'll win it and we'll be in and out in a year like the first Gulf War. But if not, we're going to have some sort of contingency plan. But
yep,
I'm sure those older guys who were just nearing retirement and saw this and it was an insurgency, that fighting in the mountains, fighting small groups, small group tactics. And it was just, there's no way you can go in there
yeah. I mean,
and
look, you
stay.
got it. You've heard it mentioned many times over the last 18 years, right? End game. What's our path out? All that kind of stuff. Here's the thing: you don't go into, you do any mission. You got it. What is pretty much anything you do in life? How do I measure success? Right? What am I trying to get to? What am I doing this thing for? How do I know that I've accomplished whatever I'm trying to do? Right? What's the goal line? So that's obviously been an issue in the wars that have been going on. And if you've been paying attention to the news, and you really have to notice this. I mean, they're having Iraq is in oh man, bad news. Okay, we'll talk about this in a second. Iraq's in bad shape right now. They got riots going on, hundreds of people getting killed. The Iraqi military opening up and shooting them and stuff like that. Obviously, if you've got to watch the right news or pay attention when it happens, but I mean, that's their own country though. They got to deal with it and that kind of stuff. So, but I mean, things are like that are going to happen. Afghanistan has its issues and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to highlight just one thing. We're talking about the military. We're talking a lot about the military and the anniversaries. And I just looked over and just saw a quick blurb. Look, we all know accidents happen, and our military trains harder than we fight. We used to say, and are still probably, hopefully, still say. And there's risk involved, as much risk mitigation, and we try to put in place. It still happens. I saw that a Black Hawk has crashed in Minnesota, killing all 3 crew members. I'm assuming probably a guard Blackhawk or maybe active Army, but being in Minnesota, it's probably guard. But I just saw that in the news, and our hearts and prayers
I'm,
go out to
you know, I
people
I'm
training.
wondering if they're trying to get, and this is not a slam on the military, but it's reality, especially with the guard. I wonder if they were trying to get all their training hours in because I was at the grocery store last week or maybe no, it was like Monday. And I'm sitting in the parking lot at the grocery store and I see four helicopters in formation above my town. You know where I live.
Yeah.
There's not a military base anywhere nearby. And I'm looking at them, and I was actually on a phone with a coworker at work, and I'm like, dude, I think I see some Black Hawk helicopters flying over there. She was like, what? And I'm like, no, seriously. And I'm like, talking to her, I said, what is going on? And I, when you say that, I wonder if they were trying to, get up all their
Well,
hours.
so in the wintertime, I can tell you, one, they have to give so many training hours in, right? So they have to be pilots, especially in the Guard and Reserve. They can't maybe make a drill, do this, do that. They have to stay current.
Right,
They have to get so many hours in. So they plan training, and they have allocated fuel already allocated and spent, pretty much paid
right.
for. So they have to get that time in. Obviously, in the wintertime in these
Use or
northern
lose.
northern states, they want to try to get that in while there's at least somewhat decent weather, because weather will ground them in a second. So
And it's been 40s. It's
right,
been like upper 30s,
yeah.
lower 40s.
Well, they just showed the
And
video, and it's definitely in snow. I mean, you can see it, but I mean, it's probably just trying to get their time in before they take the Christmas breaks, and they got to get their training in this quarter or something like
which is
that. Yeah,
horrible. I mean,
yeah,
we all understand why it's done.
right,
But it is still horrible so close to
yeah,
the holidays and
yeah, yeah,
and
and
I pray for their families because
as we
this
know, it takes
is
every death has the average is around 13 to 15 people are immediately affected from every death, and that's just the immediate, not counting the ripple effects out. I mean, family, coworkers, friends, loved
yeah.
ones, extended loved ones. I mean, so
And guard
it's
units are different than military units because or like active duty units because guard units are they tend to all be the same people for their lifetime.
yeah, I mean, if you live in the area, I mean, they're very
Yeah.
tight hitting it for sure. But yeah, so just something to think about that if you're watching and listening right now. That it's our soldiers, our sailors, airmen, Marines who are whether abroad or in the states. I mean, they're training, they're out there doing stuff. Accidents happen all the time, and just there's. That's why when you see them, I know why people want to thank them for their service and give them applaud and all that stuff. Obviously, it makes a lot of folks, a lot of us uncomfortable sometimes, but we know that's kind of what's behind it. As long as it's got meaning behind it. It's not just checking a block. But
Yeah.
I want to get into something else here. It has been a little bit active in the political landscape this week, and we talked about earlier about this is kind of the week of anniversaries. This also seems to be the day of snapping. Um, so it's I picked up some things. We got Nancy Pelosi did her special news conference this morning, saying she's like there was no surprise, like duh, they're going to push forward on the impeachment, and she snapped at a reporter because
She
he asked her
lost
uh,
her cool.
because he asked her about her hating the president, which she says, "Well, I'm a Catholic, I don't hate." I'm not going to get into religious debate here, but
Okay, no, I've got something to say here. Let me just say it. You cannot try and hold the high ground on saying, I'm Catholic and I don't hate. And she took huge offense over the word hate because that is a very strong word that you hate somebody. Somehow she got all butthurt because he said, do you hate President Trump? And yet she is a staunch abortion protector. And so, how do you try and reconcile that obscene and completely disparate set of moral obligations or moral imperatives or moral perceptions? You you cannot justify it.
right,
You
yeah, yeah.
can't.
That's why I mean I was kind of like you're Catholic and Catholic and hate, and some people will say that Catholics kind of have anyways, it's not always known as a religion of super friendly, nice. I mean, you can look through their history, right? So to sit there and say I'm Catholic, there's no way you could accuse me of hating somebody. It's like, we can go back a few years, we can go back into some of our history and say that Catholics have been known to hate for whatever reason. But it doesn't
She was
matter what
trying
your
to she
it
was
doesn't matter
trying
what your
to
religion
pretend like
is,
she had some sort of
right?
moral high
It
ground.
doesn't matter what your religion is. You're still a human being, and you still have
And didn't
flaws.
she look like the Wicked Witch of the West right before she got melted?
Well, she always
Like
does. Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah,
skinny and like pointing, and she looked like a little shrew. I was like, lady,
yeah. But exactly, but
oh,
she always looks like that. But the reality is, being a Catholic doesn't put you above anything else. Being a Baptist, being a Mormon, being an atheist doesn't mean anything because you're still a human being, and your religion does not define you. There's enough people that have been abused by priests that can testify to that. But and abused in all kind of different ways. People can take we see all over the world people take religions and skew it for their own personal interest and their own personal things that they want to do as a human being, a flawed person. But so we had that. We had Biden, who also snapped today on a couple people. He
these people are like working so hard for election, aren't they?
he called one guy a damn liar. He told another one to stick it up his ass, and he apparently mocked somebody for being overweight, all in one day. Um, I don't know. I'm thinking, and I could be wrong. When he stick with me on this one. President Trump and his campaign was kind of known as being crass and rude, and grab him by the all that kind of stuff and everything, and he still got elected. I'm wondering, does Biden think that's the key? Like to be mean to people and like you're going to be like the soup Nazi and everyone's going to love you? I mean, because you snap at three people in one day and tell one dude to stick it up his ass, and you think that's going to turn votes around? But it's almost like they're trying to open the Trump playbook and like be mean, crass, rude, and coarse, and maybe people will like us. They'll find me
Well,
relatable.
you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Before Trump took office, and I am conservative to an extent, but I am not always a staunch party line type of girl. So, before Trump won, the Republicans, and I witnessed this personally because I was running at the same time as him. So I was well within the local county and the state party activities. Um, they have, like, they, for some reason, the Republicans have really taken this stance prior to Trump that we want to be kind of conciliatory. We want to try, like the liberals always say, we have the wide open tent. That's always been their position, that everybody has room under the tent. The Republicans have always kind of done this little dance where we have this little kind of moral framework that we believe in, small government and all this other stuff. But we want to try and be welcoming. And it has not done them any good because in reality, what's happened is the Republicans have folded and folded and folded over and over again to the Democrats. They just roll over like dogs and bare their throats and just like, oh, but look, we took the high ground.
Right.
Trump came in and was like, no, you're not gonna pull that on me. And it really, I was just thinking about this the other day because I was listening to music, and remember that Toby Keith song, the Red, White, and Blue song?
Yeah.
And it was right after 9/11, and he was so vehement, the sucker punch came out of nowhere and gave us a big black eye, and he uses the language of retaliatory. We will not allow you to treat us like this, and so now prepare yourselves to get your ass kicked. It is what it is. And so I think Trump has always always kind of had that kind of combative style, and then he brought it to the White House. He brought it to his campaign and he brought it to his White House. Well, then during the Kavanaugh hearings, who was this? Lindsey Graham. Lindsey
Yeah,
Graham,
remember
like
he went off. Yeah, I remember that.
he
Yeah.
was like all trying to be like Trump, but it worked actually for him because we were all like, what the hell's going on? Look at him standing up for himself. And then all of a sudden now, I think the liberals and the Democrats feel like, well, fine, they can be all nasty like this. We will too, except they've been nasty all along.
Right.
And the Republicans have just finally started fighting back. And because Republicans have finally started fighting back, they're all like, we can't have this. And then they snap and they just lose their cool. They can't believe people are questioning them or pushing them back on their narrative or calling them out as liars. Like they literally cannot believe that anybody out there does not roll over and bare their throats like the Republicans have been doing for the last 30 years.
Right, right. Yeah, it's
That's my
it
opinion.
is no, it is. You're right. They have rolled over a lot, and there's been a lot of things said and done, and it always seems like the Republicans, for lack of a better term, took the high ground or turned the other cheek. But you can only do that so many times, and they needed to. You just can only get slapped around so much. And there's one thing. It's one thing the president definitely hasn't done. Maybe he's showing the Republicans that hey, have a little backbone, fight back, and you're still going to be okay or something. I don't know, but they do. There's a lot of snapping today, a lot of angriness.
I think it's hilarious. Biden is such a hot mess. I know his handlers go home and drink a fifth of vodka every night because he's all licking his wife's fingers and talking about his leg hairs.
Yeah. Oh,
And
the leg hair thing the
now
other
he's
day.
all
I thought,
snapping on the people who are going to vote for him. You cannot snap. When I ran for office, Vicki Brown, who was the treasurer, the current treasurer before she retired, and she was a Democrat, and she was helping me with my campaign, and she said, "Wendy, every time you stop talking, the last thing you're going to say is, 'I am asking for your vote.'"
yeah,
She said, "It's very simple.
yeah.
That's why you're here. You are asking them for
Right.
their vote."
I gotta say something real quick on the leg hair thing. I thought that was a, I thought that was a, who's the guys that make the video that voice in the voices, the one.
South Park?
No, no, no. The
Oh,
YouTube videos. The YouTube videos always bad lip reading. I thought that was a,
oh.
I thought that was a bad. I was doing something. I was busy, and I saw a clip of it. I really thought that was a bad lip reading clip. I'm like, why is that on like mainstream media, regular news? And then I watched it for just a couple seconds. I grabbed my attention. I was like, oh no, that's really him talking about his blonde leg hairs and people rubbing up on him and all that stuff. And I was just like, what is this? What is he doing? I'm like, oh, I mean, this is better fodder than Dan Quayle. I mean,
I
it's
I know, right? When you think back to Dan Quayle when he spelled potato wrong,
yeah.
that was like such a huge deal. And here's Biden just like licking
He's already
fingers
had
and
issues
touch my
about.
leg hair,
I mean,
and you're an asshole, you're a liar.
there's all these
Like,
videos of
what is
him
going on?
uncomfortably rubbing people, women, and kissing on them and grabbing their shoulders, and he kind of got talked to about doing that. And now he's talking about people rubbing up on his leg hair and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, oh my
He's
goodness.
so weird.
I
I don't
mean,
know why. I don't know why somebody doesn't just sit down with him and have come to Jesus talk. Listen,
I'm waiting for him to pick Anthony Weiner as running mate. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's where
somebody
it's
needs
next.
to tell him, listen, your grandpa Joe, you have a legacy in he was a senator. I believe he was a senator. You were vice president under Obama. It's time to gracefully move into retirement, mentor some young up and coming Democrats, help give them some polish because the current crop is a hot mess.
Today, an 82-year-old told him that he was too old to run, and that he challenged the 82-year-old to a push-up contest.
I know.
It's like what?
Did you see the Iowa Hawk blog or whatever? He's just like, oh my gosh, what's the challenge or today's CrossFit
Right.
challenge? It was like it was the Biden fit, like 100 push-ups and
Box jumps
touching
and
somebody's legs. I was like, oh my gosh,
oh, I
oh
got
my gosh.
someone's got to be working on it right now. I'm expecting a viral video in the next week of some. I mean, Tim Kennedy or someone needs to make that just the Biden workout or something. God, I got to reach out to Tim and Toby because they're working on something right now. I got to tell them they got to do that. Yeah, but I tell you who he won't. I tell you who he won't advise or mentor, and that's Kamala Harris because, boy,
It's another
she
hot mess.
another, all the Beto, Kamala, all these ones that started out as being like, the darlings and getting all the press, have all fizzled and drowned out because they were literally promoted off of nothing. And she kind of had her own issues. She got a lot of questions. But what really got me is watching the news over the last 24 hours were the number of folks on several of the mainstream media outlets, and mostly those that are minorities, talking about how bad it's going to be that the next debate's going to be all white people. and at that, that, and almost implying that racism pushed Kamala out. I guess they don't not thinking about Cory Booker, but also he doesn't have the votes or whatever is needed to even make the debate. But they've also forgotten that Kamala Harris didn't get. She obviously wasn't popular with anybody, white, black, purple, whatever they were. So
Here's the thing. Remember, this is internal to the Democratic
right,
Party.
right,
If you think it's about race, guess what? It's the liberal Democrats who
the
don't
race,
like you
right.
based on your race. If you think that that's why, because it's race,
That
it's within the Democratic Party. They're the ones who are donating to the campaigns,
Yep.
the Democrats and all the Democratic supporters working at all the tech companies or whatever, people who are throwing money at these people and saying in the polls, I'm going to vote for this person, I'm going to vote for that person. Guess what? It's all Democrats.
So she raised 27
Who you
million.
can blame?
So she raised 27 million in her campaign, and they said she just went broke. Now, obviously, they didn't have you as their accountant because I'm sure they could have made it stretch a little bit more. But there was also accusations. Bloomberg just came in and he spent 30 million on his first weekend's ad campaign. Okay, well, he's a big rich dude; he can do that. But I think she still could have. She could have made 27 million last, but the reality is that you got that 27 million probably came in initially when there was a lot of hype and cool people and Hollywood people flogging over her. But obviously the message didn't hold because I'm sure the money quit coming in and she drained it all out or she spent it wrong. But she's not getting the support, she's not getting the numbers, she's not getting the poll numbers, and that has nothing to do with race. That has nothing to do, like you said, unless it's a state where unless it depends on how they're polling, but it's the Democrats that are contributing, they're polling, that are signing up to be workers, to volunteers for her, that are willing to put out signs and make phone calls. If they weren't doing that, then it's because she did not impress them. And isn't that what Martin Luther King and everything this country is about when it comes against being fair, equal, and not having a racist bone in our body? Did he not talk about being judged on the virtue of your character and not the color of your skin? Okay, she's not in. She was the only she was a minority and she was a female and she's not. Well, obviously her character was not impressing anybody, right?
You read about what her chief, I think her chief like state campaign person said about her.
The one that left, that
Basically,
went to Bloomberg's
huh?
campaign.
The one, no,
Yeah,
her Kamala's person.
yeah,
I
the one that quit.
don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
she was basically like, I can't even support this woman because she, was moving people around to different states. And
yeah,
here's the thing, when I've seen at the state level, they kind of have the local coordinators, and these local coordinators are going around to all the little local offices and trying to find volunteers, and they're going to door knock, and they're going to hang door hangers with literature, and they're
right,
going to robocall, or at least human call, but make all these calls, and it is very labor intensive to campaign. And so what you have is kind of the county level or the local level, then the state level, and that state level is looking at, and it depends on, if you're looking at specific campaigns or the state party in general, you're looking at the federal or, presidential candidate, you're talking about senators and representatives, and then you're talking about maybe you can pick up a couple of the local candidates.
right.
And the whole goal of that, though, is if you're going to support a local state candidate, you want all of their staff to come help you and come door knock and talk to people and
Right.
sit at the county fair and sit at the state fair and hand out literature and try and get those votes. It's really a huge machine. And if she took her volunteers and talked them up and moved them to another state and then shut down the office.
Yeah, she left people out there hanging, and that's what the complaints are really about. And guess what? Those people are going to now start not promoting her, but saying, "Hey, don't vote for her because this is what she did," and that's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
It's the same thing as Biden calling people names.
Right,
When you're running for office, you got to suck it up. You're a target. Suck it up.
right. And what do they
Smile.
always say? If you
Get paid.
can't take
Get
that,
man.
you can't take that. How are you going to take the things on the world stage and everything else if you can't take a local runoffs and this and that? But I mean, right now I'm seeing but we talked about a second ago. Booker and Castro both are saying the DNC debate rules are excluding them from minorities making the debates. Now that Kamala Harris is gone. I don't know how they could accuse the DNC of manipulating votes and manipulating who they want to be in. Oh, wait, no, didn't they do that for on Bernie? Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
well, okay, but
That
Castro and Biden might.
Wasserman lady.
Booker and Castro may have something there because the DNC now has a record from 2016 of wanting to promote their candidate Hillary and suppressing and doing things to suppress the popularity of Bernie and for him getting the vote. So, well,
Yeah.
maybe they got something there. Maybe the DNC is doing something. I don't know. It sounds like the power is still in the hands of the people if they want to pay attention, and they can make changes to the DNC or whatever. But the reality is you've got to get the votes, and if you're out there shaking enough hands, kissing enough babies, and doing and you have policies that
Yeah.
people can
I
believe
think
in,
that's,
and you have policies that you can win people over with, you are going to win the vote. You got to find how you can do something better than how it's done today or how it's done by your other people, right? That you're going
well,
against.
the thing is that, at the beginning, when all these people popped up on the radar, they were all kind of one trick ponies. They all had their pet cause.
Right.
And then they started kind of trying to expand and co-opting each other's causes. Who was it? One of the Democrats got all pissy because the other one stole their Medicare plan or something like, their
Right.
plan for Medicare, uh, you know,
Yeah, I think
for all.
Buttigieg and Biden or somebody they're arguing over
Yeah.
someone
And,
stole each other's thing. Yeah.
because none of them have an original
Right.
thought, none
Right.
of
Right.
them have an original, but they can launch themselves onto the national platform by
Whatever
finding
bandwagon's
that
getting the
thing.
attention
Yeah,
is what they want. Right.
anti-guns. I think that was Beto's thing. Um,
Yeah.
Kamala, she was like trying to come across as like law and order, but she's a nut job
Yeah. So
anyway.
the one thing is, and I've talked about. I was having a long conversation last night when I was in D.C. with a good friend and coworker, and we've had some good civil discussions. But I talked about it on here, and I say this with empathy, and I mean this. I really feel bad for the Democratic DNC candidates that are running for this primary. All 17 or whatever existed, all the way down to the 15 that I named. Now, I guess there's almost 30 that existed. Now it's down to 15. The reason why I feel bad is because they have every card stacked against them by their own doing. And I say that, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When you spend your entire primary run up trying to out left everyone else, and trying to think the only way that you've missed the mark to the degree that the only way you can attract and win the primary and win the votes are to promise giving everything away, bringing everyone in, and doing as much progressive socialist out left ideas as you can. It is going to come back to bite you because at some point, whoever ends up being the last one standing on the Democrat side have to face a campaign that knows how to handle narrative and message and has already been through this once. A campaign that fought not only the Democrats and fought the press, but also fought the established Republican base. President Trump fought all three and has done his whole life fighting people in business. So you can bet
You know,
they're going to have every soundbite, every recording, every clip where that person promised to give away something, this and that, and be as far left as possible. They're going to have those queued up, ready to go, almost like New Era
yeah.
Caps has both Super Bowl champion hats in boxes ready to go for the game. They know whoever wins, they got one ready. The Trump campaign is going to have that ready, queued up, and to hit the sound
The
button.
Democrats, here's the
They
thing,
don't have a
30
chance.
years ago, they really did try to portray themselves as, having a big tent and everybody was welcome.
Right.
I remember, listening to them. And this was back actually around Clinton's time, and Hillary was a lot less unstable, you know? But if you watch within the groups that tend to vote Democrat and who tend to really push the liberal ideal, it has become a huge infighting issue. The feminists hate the trans women think the cis feminists are phobic. Within the DNC, they're saying, oh, they're being racist, and so they don't like black people. And yet, at the same time, the party depends on the black vote.
Right.
And if they could get another candidate like Obama, who was black, who pulled in the black vote, who was somewhat moderate compared to the current crop of nut
He's
jobs.
even telling them they need to back off what they're doing. I mean, he's telling them they
Yeah,
need to
when
quit.
even he's like, y'all have gone off the rails, you
Right.
know? So the problem is that nobody wants, except for Biden. And the crazy old coot is actually the one who is more central
The most central
and
one is
moderate
Tulsi
compared to
Gabbard.
everybody else. But
Biden
he's
and
just
yeah,
crazy because he's like crazy old Joe.
that's why Gabbard is such a threat. She's the most moderate. She's partly libertarian. She's the most moderate down the central one
Yeah,
there
they
is.
hate her.
They hate her because she breaks every narrative.
Yeah,
She does not support. She loves her military. She still serves. She goes against a lot of stuff they want, and she's not trying to push ultra left. That's why they attacked her on the last debate, and a lot of people are like, "Why? She's not even. She's barely made it to the stage. Why were all these attacks launched against her?" I can tell you why. Because and it was Kamala Harris that launched against her and a couple others because they see her as a threat. Because at the end of the day, unless Crazy Joe gets too much more crazy, if he does win the primary, if him or Kamala or if him or Gabbard win, they actually have a chance to pull the independent vote. They have a chance to
yeah,
say to pull that down the middle, the folks that are kind of on the fence that we know really have made the decision in every election for the past umpteen years. It's the people that are hard left are voting. The people that are hard right are voting that way. It's that percent down, 17% down the middle of the country that can really are really objective minded and open about who they think is the best candidate. These people
yeah,
that are far left don't stand a chance of pulling in because they're talking about giving free health care and college to illegals and prisoners and blah, 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 and no way to pay for it and trillions in debt. But people like Biden, if he can maintain some sanity, or people like Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard, who checks the blocks of what? Veteran, female, minority. She checks all the right. She has all the right narratives. She's a threat to the rest of them because she checks all those narratives that they're trying to perpetuate. Klobuchar and Kamala and Booker. She hits all those things and then some. But she's also talking with common sense, and she's agreed with the left and agreed with the right. She's the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest threat to President Trump if she makes it all the way through. She
yeah.
she
It's
is.
not going to happen. They won't let her.
They won't because the DNC
Just like they
controls
didn't
everyone.
let Bernie.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, but that's my prediction. If she were to get that far, who knows if she would? But I mean, she's right down the middle. The rest of them are way out there. And Biden keeps snapping at people. He's not gonna he's not gonna do. I mean,
It just cracks me up. I love watching them tear at each other.
what I love real quick is when McCain ran against Obama, everyone talked about the Republicans, the old white man, the old white man party, and it's the Republicans a whole bunch of old white men and blah blah blah, and Obama's this young black man. Now they got Biden and Bernie as the two top guys. You can't get much older and much whiter than those two dudes. So
That's why they're not going to make it either. They're going to, what'll happen is the Democrats, the DNC is going to push forward what they think is the ideal, progressive, visually acceptable because they're not white type of candidate. They're looking for a prototype
so
candidate.
is that Booker? Is that
And
Buttigieg because he's gay, or is it
yeah, I'm thinking
Klobuchar?
it might be like Booker.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
He's got some
then
baggage.
what'll
He's got
end
some
up happening
history.
is
He's got some
Trump's going
history.
to eat his
Oh yeah,
lunch.
yeah, yeah. The was it the Spartan or what is he? The what was he called himself?
Spartacus.
Spartacus. Yeah, yeah.
I am
He's got a little
Spartacus.
history. He's got a little bad negative baggage behind him too. But no, it's I really they there's a reason why Bloomberg just jumped in. There's a reason why you hear a lot of polls of people like there's not really a good candidate. They started out with they have 30 and there's none that have really jumped out that they think have a chance of doing anything. And it's obvious through this whole impeachment thing being pushed so fast that the reason why they're pushing it so fast and trying to do this is, and I'm convinced of this, that the Democrats think that's the only way they can beat the president in 2020. They have to shove this through at the speed they're doing, which is faster than any other one that's ever been done, because I think they really feel they don't have a chance against him if they can't have an impeachment against him. None of their candidates have a chance, right? Which I don't know why, because
They need to,
even if
the
they impeach
problem
him,
is that they have
Mike Pence
they
is more
they
moderate.
should have looked at what they've done in
Right,
the House of Representatives. That's the only place that they have control in the House. They don't have control of the Senate. They don't have control of the presidency in the House.
right.
And they should, instead of doing this whole impeachment shit show, they should have focused on some really good key pieces of legislation. They should have worked across the aisle, and then they would be able to hold up some really good wins and successes. But instead, they're doing what they're doing. And then we've got Trump on the other side, who I'm not a fan of him. He needs to somebody needs to do just like with the kids where you could shut off the Wi-Fi. I mean, they've got the guy with the football. I'm sure he has a phone. He can answer if there's an emergency for his own phone, but don't let Trump have his phone. But then, you know,
You want Melania to take his phone away and be like, you're cut off of
yeah,
Twitter?
honey, okay, we got the I had one for my son like 10 p.m. His phone just bricked. It was it.
Yeah.
10 p.m. brick phone. That's what they need to do with Trump. But the problem is that for the Democrats is that he has had very good economic success. He has
That's why
had very good
they have no
social
platform.
success in the sense that he's just not taking crap off of anybody. And the rest of us Americans who have watched previous administrations and
Oh, I lost I lost Wendy. How did I lose Wendy? Um, that was not good. Let me. Uh, okay. Well, she dropped. That was not good. Um, she must. Maybe she had to go do something real quick, and just. I don't think she did. She must. We must have had a little blip there in the interwebs. Um, so just to continue on to what she was saying, real quick, we're gonna wrap here real soon anyway. So I'm not sure if she even get back. Um, is that she's talking about pulling the president's cell phone and not letting him tweet and all that kind of stuff and then going into the platform. But that's what I was about to say is the Democrats, the reason they're having a hard time message, the reason why Kamala Harris was looking at like not having a message is because how can you argue against a bustling economy? How can you argue against the lowest unemployment rate ever? There's more jobs available than there are unemployed people. How can you argue against the lowest unemployment rate for Hispanics, women, or African Americans? I mean, what are they gonna say? He's cut regulations. He donates his paycheck every month. He's done drastic policy changes in the VA. I mean, you know, what are you gonna say that he's not doing well? Besides that, you just don't like him. I mean, I don't. They're in a tough spot. You know, uh, she says I hung up on her. I didn't hang up on her. They're in a tough spot. I don't know how they're going to come back. Let me see if I can get Wendy back here real quick. Since she claims I hung up on her, that's kind of loud and annoying. Sorry about that. Hopefully she answers. All right, I'm going to hang up because I don't know if she's there. But there's not what can you say? He's messed up immigration, trying to build a wall. I mean, he hasn't messed up. He's not like he's letting people in. I mean, what is going to be your platform to stand on that's anti whatever his platform is? Again, they're in a tough spot. I don't know how they're going to come out of it and how they're going to argue. Whoever makes the last round and goes against President Trump for the campaign, where it's going to go. But here's what I do know: it is December 5th, and we have an election 11 months away. Let me answer that. That was loud and annoying. So let me see if I can bring Wendy in on that one. Hey there, you there?
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all
You
right.
hung up on me.
You said I hung up on you. I don't think I did. But let me see if I can bring you back here real quick. Nope, not that one. Oh, there you are. Okay, I got you now.
We're almost done
We're
anyway,
almost
right?
done.
Were you just
Yes.
gonna keep talking?
No, we're almost done. No, I was just saying as wrapping up that I was just talking about we were talking about some of his policies and things, and I was I don't know how the reason why Kamala Harris had a hard time establishing a foothold of what she stood for, and people were accusing her flip flopping, or that people have a hard time making their cases. What is your thing against whatever he's doing that he's doing wrong, right? When you have the lowest unemployment, the lowest black, female, Hispanic unemployment, the best market, the market busting records, more jobs available than there are unemployed people. I mean, all these things that are happening, the cut in regulations. What does any candidate have short of I don't like him, he's mean, or calling him names that you can't substantiate, like, racist and Nazi and that kind of stuff? But anything tangible, what's your argument? Or what's not going well in this country that some other candidate says they could do better? I'm really open to hear what that
And,
is.
and and that's why I said, if they could have pushed through some good legislation, if they could have pushed through and worked with the Senate, and a lot of senators from the Democratic Party are running, they could have said, I co-sponsored this, I co-authored that. We worked in a bipartisan way to move things forward in the right direction for Americans, yada, yada, yada. But instead, they just spend all of their time bitching and moaning
Well, they're
about
not. They're not
Trump
passing.
and
There's a
how
ton of
horrible
laws.
he is,
Right.
and they literally refuse to acknowledge anything positive that he may have done, such as reducing unemployment, improving the American economic position against some countries who have taken advantage of us in previous years. They just absolutely refuse to acknowledge anything
Even
positive
the
that he
executive
could ever
orders and the
possibly
things
do.
he's put in place about funding autism, making uh, torturing and animals a federal crime. He's done all these things
Yep.
recently, where these things that are really good, positive things that he has the ability to do. They won't even get him. They won't even give him the credit for that, right? Because they're just so blind with hatred. And again, they're not. There's laws stacking up. There's bills stacking up, should I say, in both houses, including the Senate run by McConnell, that are not being passed because they're so distracted by all this other stuff, committees and this
Impeachment.
and that and this and that, right? And I think the people
Do
on
your
impeachment, the
jobs.
people on impeachment burnout. They really are. Look, we need term limits. Absolutely, 100% term limits. 3 terms, both houses of Congress. That's it. You're out. You can't go and come right back after one more term. 3 terms and do what the founding fathers did. Thank God President Washington did 2 terms and left and set the precedent, and then eventually became law of president can only run 2 terms. Um, the rest of Congress needs to follow the same thing. I'll give them one
Yeah.
extra.
Okay.
Give them
Okay. Okay.
three.
Okay. This is when we do the devil's advocate thing, Troy.
Okay.
Here, here's
I,
the thing.
I thought we were wrapping, but
There
that's
are
okay. We'll
a
keep going.
lot of rules associated with the legislature and like
Yep.
passing the legislature and
Yep.
all the little committees and Robert's rules and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
this other stuff. Now we've seen and we've mocked AOC and some of the dumb things that she said because she doesn't understand how it works.
Right. Right. Right.
Okay. And she's just like, and there's a handful of them
Yeah.
that have come in and they really don't understand how it works.
The squad. Yeah.
If we start, and it's not just a squad though.
But
The
they're
thing is
definitely in
that
that group of dumb
any
ones.
of those freshman
Right.
Congress people, they have to be kind of mentored and brought
But
along,
but you
and
know what they have?
it takes a lot of learning.
They have a
And
whole.
if you're
But they.
cycling through them very quickly, there comes a point where you start losing the tribal knowledge of how to actually run
They
things.
have a full staff that runs everything for them. I work with members of Congress because with my job. They have an entire office of staff locally in D.C., much less in their state. They have a chief of staff. They have
Yeah, okay,
administrators. They
that's
have
the whole deep state shit that I'm not
no,
too
but those
tickled
those are the
about.
people. Those
Because
people. They
a lot of times they're the ones who are telling their person how to vote.
they are
Yeah,
the
no,
ones that
I'm
do
not
all the
I'm not a fan
research
of
and all that
that.
stuff. But they also bounce from Senate when one senator leaves or gets incriminated or does whatever or congressman, they go and find a job with another one. That's what they do. They bounce. They know how washing. They know how that works. So it's not like you throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now AOC, she brought in a whole bunch of freshman goofballs like herself, and which they've already getting into problems, and that's why. But just like you may have a president. We'll look back in GW, right? George Bush, when he was elected, a lot of people accused him of not knowing and not being smart in their ways and all that kind of stuff. Even President Trump, not knowing Washington, surrounded themselves with experienced people, lieutenants that around them that know how to make the things work, that could give them advice and all that stuff. Now, whether they listen to him or not, something else. So, but 3 terms, they come in as a freshman. They have a full another term if they get reelected to do all they can. They do have a third term to do as much as they can, and by then they've got it down pat. But they don't need to spend 30, 40 years there. Be a Strom Thurmond or a Byrd or Harry Reid or Pelosi and be there forever. And one term gets them free lifetime medical care, which I think is crap too, right? They need to do
Yeah,
what the
pension.
they need
They
to
get a
do
pension.
they need to do what the founding fathers did, and that is you leave you leave your constituents, you go up there and represent your people in Congress. You get a couple years to do it. And if you're doing good, they'll reelect you a couple times, and then you go back to being a banker, a lawyer, a farmer, which back then it was farmers. I don't think no farmers go up and do it now. But you go back to whatever you did. It's not meant. It's meant to be. It's called civil service for a reason. It's public service for a reason. You go up and serve your country doing that, and then you go back. It's not meant to be a money making career. And oh, by the way, the
You don't
law,
actually serve your country, you serve your community.
which is serving your country, which
That's
is serving your country, because you're passing,
yeah,
you're making
but the
laws for
thing
the
is,
country.
yeah, but the thing is that you are always looking, or you're supposed to always be looking for the best interests of
Of your
your
constituents,
community.
but you're
Look
all
at Pelosi
right,
and her community. Look at her
right.
district. Has she done, as literally Speaker of the House, the most powerful woman in the House, has she done the very best for her
Mm-hmm.
constituents, for the people in her area who vote for her and who depend on her to help them?
Right. Just like
Uh,
no, I mean just the same as people from other districts like that, right? They are not going back to, but they do have national service in the fact that they pass
as an
laws.
institution,
Right,
as
right.
an
Which they're a
institution,
member
they
of,
serve the
and
nation.
and by
But
serving,
each one of them individually, they are supposed to be thinking about their
but when
constituents,
they serve on
not the
committees,
party.
they are that's where they're at that national level. On a committee, they're making decisions or checking or keeping an eye on things from a national level. They're not representing their constituents. That's why a committee chair has a full staff in his office as a House or Senate office. He or she have a duplicate full staff in the committee. Every committee is a separate full staff that sustains and supports that committee that is outside, and very few share staffers across from committee to office. So if there's a chief of staff and all these people over in their office, they have the same thing in their committee, because that committee is a special group on the national level that has nothing to do with their constituents, right? So that's what I mean. There's that piece, but the bottom line is it's still public
But how do
service.
they get on the committee? It's all party
Oh,
related. It's all
absolutely,
party run.
absolutely, right. And they
It's
and they
yeah,
politic and they got to get votes and blah blah blah, but they need to be there for a few years. And by the way, the law should also be they cannot go be a lobbyist. You can't jump and
yeah,
go be a lobbyist, right? You need to go back to
yeah.
where you came from. Nancy Pelosi needs to go back to San Francisco and do something locally, maybe for the homeless people or something. Maybe she can scoop up the poop. I don't know, but she needs to go
Yeah.
back and do something else, right? All of them need to do max 3 terms is my idea, and no lobbying, and go back. And you know what? That then the American people, then the Congress won't have a lower approval rating than Satan himself, right? Then American people will think, oh, Congress actually they're doing something. I know that guy. I was in it. Our kids went to Scouts together, or I know him from down the street, and he's representing our people, whether I agree with everything he does or not. And then after a few years, that guy or girl comes back, and you see him around town, and hey man, thanks a lot for what you did your service. That's it. You're out. But not 30,
Yeah,
40, 50
Ron
years.
Johnson's actually doing that. He's in his last term.
Right.
He was reelected to a second term, and he's done. Once he's done with this term, he's out. He's going back. He was a businessman. He'll go back to running
I
businesses, I
mean,
guess.
Trey Gowdy
You
looks
know,
like that's what he's. I mean, I'm not sure what, but he just up and left and said it's time for to go. And again, I know you do lose some, you do lose some continuity and some of that experience, but at the same time, that continuity experience when it goes too long is what you drink your own Kool-Aid. Right, you feed
yeah,
on you forget
they
where you
become
came from.
entrenched.
You forget where you came from. You forget your roots. You can't just go back every time you get a recess and do a couple speaking events in your local hometown and do a couple things and think you're back in touch with your people. Right? You want to get
Well,
back
the
in touch
big
with your
thing,
people. Go knock on those
think
doors.
about Pelosi and what kind of secrets she knows about that whole cohort of Biden, Harry Reid, within their party and also within the Republican Party. When you have those people who have been there for decades, they know where all the skeletons are.
And
And that's why they can pull all the strings and call the shots.
they've been wheeling and dealing to compromising for bills and fundings and this and that, and everyone's been trading off. I mean, say what you want about Kevin Spacey, but the House of Cards show on Netflix was, at least the first couple seasons, I mean, it kind of showed in pretty fair close reality of just how ugly that is, and how deceptive it is, and how much backstabbing there is, even though it was dramatized up for the show in some degrees. But I mean, it kind of gives people a taste of what it's like. I mean, we do wheel and deal. You do it in your work. You compromise. I mean, some people you don't get into it with because I got to get along with that guy or girl, or I need something, and I'm just going to let it go. They kind of pissed me off. And they drank all the coffee and didn't do this, or I'm working with somebody. We do it at a much micro level, and probably one doesn't have near as much impact, but but they do the same thing. They just do it at a national level. Like, hey, I'll sign off on your thing if you make sure in the next funding bill you give my local whatever this company in my area, you fund them to get the next defense contract, or you approve them for this, or you fund this research bill at the local university for $5 million to study how shrimp breathe underwater, or whatever the hell they do, right? But that has much more meaningful impact on our country than what we do. But in reality, in all our things in life, we wheel and deal. We negotiate. We compromise. We ignore. What do we say?
They don't anymore. They don't.
No.
And,
Well,
and it's sad.
they do it. They do it at the party level, right? They do it at the party level.
Yeah, within their own party.
Right. I'm
Yeah,
sure
within their
Pelosi
own
rules.
party.
I'm sure
But
Pelosi
even
rules
then,
with the iron
AOC,
fist.
like the squad group, they're all about burning bridges and
Yeah.
talking crap about the old guard, which is
Notice
not
they've been
doing
kind of
that.
quiet lately, though. There hasn't been a lot, and not that they haven't been quiet, but at least the press isn't covering. Maybe because it's all the impeachment stuff. But there hasn't. If you think about it, I haven't heard any of their names in a while. But
Well, that's because a bunch of them, well, at least one of them's getting popped for campaign. Well,
Tlaib's
two
got
of them are
campaign
getting
stuff.
popped for
Yes.
campaign finance.
Right. Two of them are getting popped. Maybe the others realize it. Just yeah, and the others are staying low too.
Let's just lie low.
Yeah. But anyways, hey, we've been running a long time. Wasn't sure where this show was going to go. We knew there was no shortage of topics to talk about. But I don't want to keep it any longer, Wendy, and our people that are watching still and listening in. And I thought maybe we should wrap it up. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hopefully it was entertaining. It was good talking to you again and good seeing you again.
They were patient.
What's that? They were
I
patient.
said they were patient with us.
They were. We had some good comments. Rob is in there a lot right now. We had a lot of good comments earlier on the chat, and hopefully people were, we had some agreements, and some people were filling us in on some stuff that we needed to know. But I'm just getting things queued up here for our outro. But yeah, so it was. We didn't get too many questions. Sarah's still on. I thought she was gonna leave, and Mom's still on too. We still got people here. Okay, yeah.
You sound surprised.
Well, Sarah said she was coming on. She said I
much.
can only be on for a few minutes, so I thought she was coming in. I tried to give her a shout out. I thought she was bouncing, but no. Thank you so much for coming on, Wendy. I appreciate this Thursday night, December 4th. Yes, absolutely. You're like my second wife, almost the same last name. But haven't seen you in a while. I'll be making you something special for Christmas. You'll be making me something special for Christmas. Neither one of us can wait for.
It's not just for you; it's for your whole family, which means
what?
you don't get to do like Sherry
What?
and hoard it and hide it.
It's for the rest. It's for the rest of them.
It's for everybody.
I didn't know that. I told him it was my gift from Wendy. Like I bring it to my office and hide it down here. And dang it! I hope they don't watch this and know that. They're gonna be like, "Hey, where's our gift from Wendy?" I'm like, she ruined it. Maybe she'll have me a special little one inside. No, I know it's for them. I do try to share it with him. Try. Sometimes I say it's moldy. Let me go throw this away. But anyways, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning, listening in. Toby's off doing a great special project tonight that hopefully you guys will all know about soon. We've got a great guest lined up for next week already. We actually have guests lined up. I think almost through all of January is already booked. Wow. So we got some good ones. Yeah, Rob, the unpaid producer, is just crushing it. He's not as mean to us as you were, but probably
Whatever.
But he's a lot more patient because he sends me and Toby people all the time, and like we respond days later, and I know it can get frustrating. But anyways, all right.
I would just call you guys up and cuss you out like
You would.
Get on it.
You would. You absolutely would. But all right. Well, thank you so much. You can unlock your son out of the bathroom now, wherever you're keeping him locked away with no internet. But I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everyone tuning in and being part of their show. We really do. We got a couple shows left. We're gonna do the next 2 weeks, and then I think we're taking Christmas week off. So we got 2 more weeks. I think we have guests lined up on both, if I remember right. So be sure and tune in here on Stu and the Nunn, and stay tuned, and we'll be putting things up on the blog and all that stuff, and hope everybody has time to get all our Christmas lights up and get all our things done and get your shopping done and blah 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 blah. The holidays are here.
Yep.
So all right.
And baby Jesus.
And baby Jesus.
Yay.
So everyone have a good night. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you so much, and we'll see y'all next week, next Thursday evening, 8:00 Eastern. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out StuandtheNunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.